Welcome to Scenario, the podcast deep dive with critics, reviews, and new ideas.
Great to be here.
Today, we're taking one of your sources, a YouTube transcript from Old Money Luxury, and diving deep into the history of the Guggenheim family.
Ah, the Guggenheims. Quite a story there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You, our listener, want knowledge quickly and thoroughly without getting bogged down. So our mission today is tracing that arc from immigrant ambition
Right.
to this immense industrial wealth, and then, well, how that morphed into major cultural and philanthropic influence.
It's a fascinating transformation, isn't it? You see that classic striving immigrant tale, but then it just explodes into something else entirely.
Yeah.
Going from, industry and mining to shaping art and science, it's a huge leap.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. We've got Meyer Guggenheim, or Mir, originally landing in Philadelphia.
Mid-19th century.
Right. And he hasn't got much, has he? He's basically peddling embroidery.
Yeah, very modest start.
Yeah.
It's a long way from the Guggenheim museums we know today.
Definitely. A lot of hard work just to get by, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then comes this sort of twist of fate almost.
The mines.
The mines, yeah. He gets offered 2 silver mines in Colorado. It was payment for debt someone owed him.
And he almost didn't take them.
Apparently hesitated, yeah. But took them. And that changed everything.
Talk about an unexpected catalyst. That one transaction
Became the foundation. And the speed of it all is just staggering. Within, a single generation?
Yeah.
Meyer and his 7 sons built this mining empire, second only to the Rockefellers in scale.
From peddler to industrial titan in like a few decades.
Yeah.
That's the American dream on steroids, isn't it?
It really captures that potential in 19th century America, I think.
Yeah.
Ambition, timing, maybe some luck.
And by 1918, the wealth was just enormous. $250, $300 million back then.
Which is billions today, easily. The Guggenheim name itself became a brand, synonymous with, massive wealth.
And this wasn't just local mining. Their reach was global.
Oh, completely. You're looking at gold in Alaska, the Yukon, tin way down in Bolivia,
Diamonds in Africa, Angola, Belgian Congo.
copper in Utah, Chile. I mean, the list just goes on. It's hard to even picture the scale of it.
They weren't just digging stuff up, though, were they? There was a strategy.
Definitely. They wanted total control, not just extraction, but the whole process. Dominance.
And that led to conflict, right? With the smelting.
Yeah, a major power struggle. They went head-to-head with Rockefeller interests over the American Smelting and Refining Company.
ASARCO.
Right, exactly. And controlling smelting, well, that's key to refining the metals. It gives you huge leverage.
And the Guggenheims won that fight.
They did. It cemented their position.
So they weren't just miners, they controlled the refining too, which meant by World War I.
They reportedly controlled something like 80%. 80% of the world's silver, copper, and lead.
That's practically a monopoly. Think about the power that gives you in global trade back then.
Immense economic power. And of course, that kind of wealth leads to a certain lifestyle.
Ah, yes, the Gilded Age mansions. They had 4 on Long Island's Gold Coast.
That's right, including Hempstead House, which sounds, over the top.
50,000 square feet. 40 rooms, a theater organ.
A Windsor organ, yeah. These weren't just houses, they were palaces, statements.
And Solomon or Guggenheim had his own grand estate too, Villa Ola, with huge gardens.
Very much in the style of the European aristocracy they were perhaps emulating. It was that era.
But then the story takes a turn, doesn't it? With Solomon.
It really does. This is where we see that pivot. Solomon starts moving away from the family business, the industry,
And towards art.
towards art collecting, yes.
Yeah.
And his wife, Irene Rothschild, and particularly Baroness Hilla von Rebbe, were huge influences there.
Hella von Rebbe, right. She was key.
She guided him towards non-objective art, abstract art.
So moving from the very tangible world of mining metals to the abstract world of modern art, that's quite a shift.
It is. And meeting Wassily Kandinsky was apparently a big moment for him.
He started buying systematically then, modernist works.
Yes, building a serious collection. His apartment at the Plaza basically became a private gallery.
But it wasn't just a hobby, was it? It became something more structured.
Much more. He established the Solomon R. Guggenheim Foundation in 1937,
Okay.
and then opened the Museum of Non-Objective Painting just 2 years later, 1939.
Which eventually became the Guggenheim Museum.
Exactly. And that led, famously, to commissioning Frank Lloyd Wright.
For that incredible spiral building, an artwork in itself.
Absolutely iconic. But Solomon wasn't the only Guggenheim making waves in the art world. His niece, Peggy.
Peggy Guggenheim, a force of nature by all accounts.
Completely. And her path was different from her uncle's.
How so?
Well, while Solomon focused on maybe the established modern masters, Peggy was all about the new, the emerging, sometimes the more radical artists.
Like giving Lucian Freud his first show.
Exactly. And famously backing Jackson Pollock,
Mm.
giving him money, studio space, crucial support.
She had a real eye, and her collection, now in Venice.
In her palazzo, the Palazzo Venier de Leoni. It's another major museum now. A huge legacy.
And she wasn't just collecting, she was right there in the avant-garde scene. A real patron.
Deeply involved and incredibly courageous, too, you have to remember. Her work getting modernist art out of Nazi-occupied Europe.
Smuggling masterpieces, essentially. That took guts.
Absolutely. It shows this real belief in art's importance, doesn't it? Which is, again, such a contrast to where the family money originally came from.
And the architectural legacy continued later, too, with the Bilbao Guggenheim.
Frank Gehry's design, another iconic building, and the impact that museum had on the city of Bilbao itself.
Yeah, the Bilbao effect. It revitalized the city, put it on the cultural map.
It really did. It shows how that cultural investment can have massive ripple effects.
It's amazing one family's influence stretching from mining copper to, well, transforming cities through art. But they did other things too, right? It wasn't just mining and art.
No, other family members branched out. Harry F. Guggenheim, for instance, he went into media, founded Newsday.
The newspaper on Long Island became pretty significant.
Yeah. And then there was John Simon Guggenheim. He actually went into politics.
U.S. Senator for Colorado.
That's the one. Though he later went back into the family business side with American smelting and refining.
And wasn't there a diplomat too?
Robert Guggenheim briefly served as U.S. ambassador to Portugal.
So you see this diversification in the later generations, different interests emerging.
Exactly. But perhaps one of the most impactful philanthropic ventures outside of art was the Daniel and Florence Guggenheim Foundation.
Right. Established back in 1924, what was their big focus?
Well, their most famous contribution, arguably, was funding Robert Goddard,
The rocket pioneer.
rocket pioneer. They provided critical early funding for his work on liquid-propelled rockets. This was groundbreaking stuff.
Wow. So the foundation built on wealth from digging into the earth.
Helped fund the technology to leave it. Yeah, it's quite something. Their support for aerospace science was long-term and really significant.
A major contribution to the field, then.
Undeniably. The foundation itself wound down operations in 2011, I believe, but its legacy in aerospace is secure.
So when you step back and look at the whole story, you see this incredible transformation.
Absolutely. Wealth generated from, resource extraction.
Transformed into cultural capital, intellectual capital, museums, foundations, university buildings, tangible legacies.
It's all there.
And the source we looked at, it ends on this really interesting, almost provocative note.
A dichotomy, right?
Yeah. Between where the money came from, mining, resource extraction, potentially with complex ethical dimensions.
Exploitation, some might argue, depending on the specifics.
Right. And where it ended up, these major contributions to art, culture, science, education.
And the question becomes,
Yeah.
can the beauty, the knowledge, the good created later somehow justify or, balance out the means used to get the wealth in the first place?
It's a tough question. No easy answer, obviously. It makes you think about wealth, legacy, and how we judge these massive historical impacts.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's a powerful case study in how fortunes evolve and the different kinds of impact they can have over time. A lot to reflect on there.
This is all. Thank you, and to the next podcast.